It's October. My tank is full and ready to go. I know by the end of the month, activity will be hot and heavy. Just need to ride the ebbs and flows of early October and the middle of the month, where deer patterns shift to gear up for the rut. The plan is simple. Go public until action picks up behind my folks, then go where the action is hot. But first, I need to shake the rust off my climbing skills with an evening sit where this channel's journey all began 5 years ago. Hello again. Feels like an eternity since being up in a tree hunting for deer. Got the VXR with me today. Tonight. I'm going to classify tonight's hunt as what I'm going to call it. I refer to it as a soft hunt, meaning unless an absolute giant buck gives me a shot, I'm talking 10-12 pointer, 10-12 pointer, just like the biggest buck I have seen on camera, like across everything. That's the only thing that's going to make me shoot tonight. Not hurting for me currently. Eventually that'll come, but no. This is actually, I think, kind of like a little scouting trip, because tomorrow morning I'm going to meet up with Corey. Maybe at a different spot here in this piece. State land. Go to a different spot. Give that a go and just kind of see how that pans out. But I'm just kind of seeing, feeling around what's going on, how I'm using this. I'm actually sitting in a hedgerow in a shagbark hickory tree, which by the way is awful to climb. Sitting in a shagbark hickory tree in the middle of a hedgerow that has two like CRP fields on either side. I've heard from other guys that have hunted here. Guys have actually had a lot of success actually shooting some big deer doing this. It's just kind of celebrating the start of another New York State deer season, month of October. Went fishing this morning. Tried to jig up some trout. Got some chasers but no biters. So I was over at Hemlock Lake. The wind just picked up and couldn't really jig anymore. So I just got on and left. But decided to do a quick soft sit here. Just enjoy sitting up in a tree again. Mobile setup. Still got it. Not nearly as fast as I once was, but I'll get the hang of it. I'll get the hang of it.
just sat down at about 6:58, and we're sitting underneath this high spot, underneath a willow tree. And I was just looking out at this goldenrod, and I saw it move, and sure enough, a decent-sized doe walked by, but it was about 44 yards, which is pretty far out of my comfort zone. It lined up perfectly broadside, but I decided not to let loose on it, just to be patient and see if it came in closer. And then another deer stepped out about 30 yards to my left, and I heard it, and it spooked the other deer right as the wind changed. So she might have smelled us, but you know, we're not fully busted, only half busted, so it might come back.
Talk about a cool way to start your morning on. We actually busted, well, half busted, if you will, 4 does on the walk over into here on the far side of this field that's back behind us. So, and the deer actually did exactly what I thought they were going to on this corner. We'll have to see if any bucks decide to do the same thing. So after a whole lot of nothing, we're going to do a little walk around and just kind of slowly make our way through and see if we can stumble upon some deer or something. So, join us for a walk. Not that you have a choice. They both are. That's a good sign. 3.
Well, we didn't see anything for about 3 hours after we saw those first 2 does. So we walked around a bit, found some game trails, found some potential spots for tree saddles. And yeah, I mean, great action-packed first time out for the season. I'm excited to go out next time. Hopefully I can go out like Tuesday or Wednesday morning and get some action.
Yeah.
I'll probably go to the same spot, man. I'll probably go right back to that willow, have myself a nice sit, and hopefully get one.
Yeah. Find trees in daylight.
Yeah, that's what we should do. We should go some afternoon and set up in some trees for the evenings. Yeah. Anyways, it's been fun.
It's been fun. You won't see my lovely face for another week, so. See you then. Hello, everybody. Back up in a tree. On public ground. It's October 7th. Still kind of in the early bit, but man, it's warm past couple days.
if you want to know where I am, I'm actually in the inside corner where in the fall season 2, I had that encounter with that bachelor group of bugs and I was sitting on the ground. This time I'm actually up in a tree, off the ground. I was trying to do that in hopes of being able to catch deer coming into the field. I wanted to go in within the corners and whatnot because it's kind of thick back behind me. You can't see a little bit here. I don't know, we'll see. It's getting pretty cold pretty fast. So kind of shut up and finally just enjoy being up in the tree. It's almost 5 o'clock, about just under 2 hours. I'll have to go till sunset, and I'm probably gonna leave right around sunset too. So, there goes nothing. See some stuff moving. Dang pheasant. Very stupid bird, but an incredibly pretty bird. I should look up and see when pheasant season is, because if it's this weekend, maybe I'll have to come here. I just checked the regs. I'm not actually going to shoot it. I can't shoot it for another 8 days. Why must you tempt me like this? Tempt me with such delicious food.
It was a slow start, with the only deer encounters coming my first hunt with Corey and one evening on my walk out where I saw this nice 8-point. However, it is going how I expected it to go. Corey and I take some time to chase ducks until the activity begins to increase behind my folks, and I feel the conditions are right for me to put more time there as the month comes to a close.
Well, it's in the afternoon. It's currently 4:23. I swap cards and all the cameras I had here that are not cellular. There's a really big 7. Not like Ocho level 7, but like it's a big 7. Basically, I think that's 3-2. He was roaming around here with a 10-pointer in the summer. He's come by a week ago, about 5 in the morning. When he came by, sun is outside green. same set. Kind of hoping based off. So yesterday morning, it didn't come from where they were fighting last night. They actually came outward. So I kind of figured last minute decision, just get back in the same tree. Same preset I have hung, just because they do come in. Like I did yesterday morning, they won't smell me until it's way too late. And then once the thermals start rising, then that path and that spot might be pretty good. But sun's gotta get up first, but for like this first early morning bed, this will be just fine. Very cold this morning. I mean, like it's in the 30s, feels like 31, like before the sun comes up. So hopefully that means the deer are gonna be up on their feet this morning and going before the pressure drops and the temperatures get a little warmer. So same thing like yesterday morning, there was activity all the way up until about 9:30 in the morning that I only could see on our cameras. So time to shut up and hunt. Alright, I think that's gonna do it for this set this morning. A touch disappointing, but yet not surprising given all the activity being pretty much just around here. Last night, hot and heavy. It's only the beginning. That's what I gotta tell myself. It's only the beginning. It's only gonna get hotter here and other places. So when I get down, go check the bull cars and cameras, make a few scrapes, may come back here, may hunt here tonight, may go somewhere different, don't know yet. So we'll see. But the rut's coming. The rut's coming. It's starting. I said the woods feel like they're about to explode a couple weeks ago. Just needs one good cold front. Here's that one good cold front in late October. Boom. So I hop down and do what I gotta do. Go get some food. So see you guys on my next set. That's her right there.
So, this particular day turned into probably one of the craziest mornings I had in the woods. Just from a standpoint of it just being odd. So, I'm going to pick up where like the text kind of left off saying like, hey, I saw this deer. I put my camera away. Wasn't seeing anything until about 9:30. Go figure. Saw a deer run towards the rock wall. What I thought was a doe actually turns out to be a button buck. But he beds down next to the rock wall for a bit. I'm sitting there watching, and I'm thinking it's a small doe, so I'm thinking maybe there might be a bigger buck back behind it. So I don't bring out my camera, because at this point, I'm no longer a cameraman. I'm hunting. And all of a sudden, I have farther off, so like from my perspective, it was my left, your guys' right. That's where that little deer went off and bedded down. But out straight and to the right of me, I saw movement, and it was a bigger group of does, so a couple mature does and some smaller, younger does. They were running, other side of this green, running, and they stopped. And I could sit there and watch. I pulled up my binoculars and I'm watching them, and the adults actually turned around and were very alert, looking right straight back where they came from. So I was like, okay, what's going on here? So I turned and looked back kind of towards where they came from, and all of a sudden I see this coyote. This, like, I thought it was a dog for a second. He had a very blonde face, looked like a Shiba Inu, and once it actually put its head down and I saw how narrow the muzzle was, I was like, okay, this is obviously not someone's dog. This is definitely a coyote. And by that point, that button buck had booked it over side of the rock wall, back towards the houses, and swung all the way back around behind me. So in the little clips afterwards, that was after the coyote had chased that buck off, and it had swung all the way around. What I didn't say is my dad was actually out with me both nights, so the 28th and the 29th. That morning he was out with me. That little deer crossed in front of him. He was in a ground blind. Crossed in front of him at 10 yards and just was moving, just kind of tucked along, cut back through by our corner stand that we had, worked all the way around and came out to where these bucks were over to my right the night before, where they had been fighting. And this button buck walked up and along this really thick kind of like I'm not sure really what you would call it, like not dogwood, but it was like thick kind of trees, and it parked right there looking out towards there. And I'm just like looking at him, looking at the group of does that are now feeding, looking at him, and I'm like, dude, your family's right there, just go. So kind of chills out there for a second, then all of a sudden he starts walking and kind of cucks back and hits a path that heads literally right straight towards my tree. Hops over a log, and then about 15 yards away from me, from the base of my tree, beds right down. He just beds right down, lays there, and I'm like, okay, cool, you're gonna hang out with me here, buddy. So as I'm sitting there and watching him for a bit, all of a sudden I turn and I look to my left, and that coyote is 35 yards and closing to 30 on the opposite side of the clearing. So complete opposite. Like where last year I shot that doe, it was like underneath the ladder stand, 30 yards and closing, hopping around like on this outside of this wood berm line marking the two properties between our neighbors and my folks. So I immediately grab my bow, and he's kind of going, he gets to a spot where he kind of stops, like he's kind of like going up on trees, pausing, and there's some gaps. So he makes one of these gaps, and I draw back. He moves out of that gap, and he's kind of going now, and in the circle he's going farther. So I let back down, and eventually gets to the path and starts to hit the path and kind of stands there and sniffs for a bit. Button buck wants nothing to do with this, plus probably seeing me move around, not realizing I'm trying to be like Batman and like save this little guy. He buggers off. Coyote sees that. Coyote crosses over the path and starts making this way at 40 yards, and I drew back 3 to 4 times on this thing, trying to wait for it, and it just would not give me a shot. It would kind of come in and then all of a sudden backed off and turned and went like completely, like it was kind of quartering to, and then it went straight this way, and then kept kind of circling around, and it makes its way literally right over to the spot where this button buck had just stopped and chilled, which is 25 yards from me on my right side. Tucks back in a little bit into the brush, curls up, beds down. I had a button buck bed 15 yards from me. I had this coyote now bedded from me at like 25 yards. It was limping a little bit, but I tried to swing around and I was going to make a noise to see if I can get it to stand up and maybe come out. So I get ready, I make the noise, it stands up. Actually, it catches me before I even make the noise. Stands up, kind of runs a little bit, stops at about 35, 40. I wasn't fully sure. Behind some brush. I draw back again, waiting for it to take another step for me to stop it. Except this time it turns and it's almost like straight back, and I'm like, I'm not going to fling it. I don't feel confident in this. So it runs then a little further back, crosses back over the path, goes back in front of my trail camera. So here's the coyote, and then runs off. I have no words for this Halloween weekend in terms of the craziness that I saw. But that morning, that was wild. Having a button buck come and bed down 15 yards, right there, and then leave, and then a coyote comes in and beds down 25 yards, not too far away from where this deer was.
It's hard to put into words exactly what that lonely freedom Roosevelt was referring to. Looking back, as a kid, I always tried to go venture into the woods on my own. I am comfortable being alone in the woods and out of the woods. The solitude gives you time to really think about your life and what you choose to value in it. The freedom comes from your ability to go as you please. Trails are nice, but I long to blaze my own. November is here. The woods become a sea of reds, oranges, and yellows. The bucks are cruising. Fall is in full bloom.